The key to raising your price and having clients happily pay it is to align the perception of your product's value with its actual value. But probably not the way you've heard. Talking about the value of your product's result isn't enough, but a scene from Mad Men shows you what to do. The main character, adman Don Draper, is racking his brain trying to figure out a slogan for his biggest client, cigarette maker Lucky Strikes. The problem is that the government has just banned all cigarette makers from making health claims on their ads, which up until then was their biggest selling point. The client is about to walk away in disgust. But at the last minute, Don comes up with a brilliant idea. Since all cigarette makers have to toast their tobacco seeds as part of the process, he decides to highlight that specific part. Hence the slogan, "It's toasted." This is brilliant because even though every cigarette maker has to toast their seeds, which the client points out, highlighting this aspect allows Lucky Strikes to position themselves as different from all their competitors. Because what smart consumer wouldn't want toasted seeds over poisonous ones? If you've been studying copywriting for a while, you might recognize this technique as the Value Prism, which highlights an often mundane aspect of what goes into creating a product, but in a way that differentiates it and increases its perceived value. When your customers also feel good about your product itself, that's when you'll be able to make more sales at the price you want. High five to that. But how can you use this technique to raise your price? There is a super easy way which also allows you to tap into your customers' pain points. This naturally improves your customer's perception of your product because you're positioning it as a solution to their problem, but not just any solution either. Take how Scrub Daddy does it. It was fall and the lawn furniture needed cleaning. Aaron, the founder, started using a traditional dual-sided sponge, but it immediately scratched the paint. He decided to try this foam he'd invented that had been stored away collecting dust. It worked shockingly well and didn't scratch. With that, the Scrub Daddy is no longer just an ordinary sponge. It's much more valuable because it saves your stuff from getting scratched and potentially ruined. That's the power of sharing how you got the inspiration to build the thing you sell. But it doesn't have to be super complicated or original like Scrub Daddy's either. For example, my version of this for luisazhou.com is just 2 simple sentences. I built my first business to 6 figures before I left my job. Afterwards, people started asking me how I'd been able to do it, and I started helping them. But there's only so far you can raise your price using this method, because the value of solving their problem is relative to each person. But what no one can argue with is the value behind your product, which is also one of the best ways to show why your price is a great deal. The way Naadam does it is brilliant. To make their cashmere sweaters, they have to go far into Mongolia and buy the raw cashmere. Then they have to drive it 36 hours to the capital. But it's not just nameless people doing the driving either. It's Bagul and Gon doing it. Once there, they have to wash and dehair the raw material to Turgan's approval. But that's not all. That then travels 600 miles to a top-of-the-line spinning facility with Italian machinery, owned by Mr. Chang. Finally, the yarn goes to a family-owned facility which creates the most stylish and warmest sweaters in the world. The first time I saw this commercial, I was left thinking their prices are a steal. Because when you can explain the steps and the people behind creating your product, it amplifies its complexity and thus its value. But here's the interesting part. What Naadam does isn't that different from every other cashmere sweater maker. But that's okay, because it's about your creation process, not how different it is. You can use this for any product, including a service. For example, when I first started Coachsulting, I spent 3 hours preparing for a client's first call. That way, I could review all their material, map out a plan, and give them very detailed instructions to help them get the best result. That means the call itself is not just that 1 hour, but actually 4 or more. But there's also one other piece that can amplify your product's perceived value immensely. Because your customers aren't just buying your product, they're also buying you. Take Goop, for example. It is controversial, but you can't deny it makes a lot of money. Something is working. But it's not just Gwyneth Paltrow's star power. There are plenty of failed business attempts by A-listers to prove that. We've analyzed before what makes Goop so successful, but we haven't talked about why Goop can charge the high prices it does. But this mention on the Goop About page gives you a huge clue. In 1994, GP films Jefferson in Paris. On set, she begins the tradition of asking the crew for their local cafe and restaurant recs, which she continues doing throughout her career to compile lists of the best places to visit. The implication is that Gwyneth did a lot of research, which most of us aren't able to do because her job took her all over the world in contact with so many people so that she could find the best things and products. You might be thinking, yeah, but she's a super rich actress, so it wasn't like it was that hard. But that's kind of the point. A common unwisdom is that you have to have some sort of rags to riches story to amplify the perceived value of your product. But I wanted to share this example with you to show that whatever your story is, even if you're afraid that it might be boring or unrelatable, you can pull out the value of what it took for you to be able to provide the product that you now do. For example, one of the courses I sell teaches you how to create a high converting webinar. It took me over 100 live webinars to figure out the methodology I teach in that course, which meant hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on paid advertising. Who knows how much time creating all those slides? Over almost 3 years of my life. When you amplify your product by showing what it took for you to earn your knowledge or expertise, you show that a huge part of the value is in saving your client from having to go through what you did. But even with the best positioning of your price, your product, unfortunately, won't sell itself. That's why I share my favorite sales technique in this next video. It's literally been responsible for millions in sales in my business. Plus, you'll see how you can charge what you want and sell it to hit your big goals, all in a way that feels good to you.